Welcome back to the Media Bolt Podcast, where we talk all things content creation. So no matter if you're filming from your cell phone or you're making big budget films with a cinema camera, we're here to provide you with practical knowledge to help you the next time that you press record. Today I've got a very special guest. This guy, he does some amazing music videos. He shoots a lot of rock music videos and just very creative and takes things to the next level and is never afraid to experiment and try things. We got our guy, Xavier Schaetzke.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for bringing me on, Justin. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you coming and taking your time, my dude.
Yeah, no worries, man. Sorry we had to reschedule so much for me to get here.
Hey, it's all good, man. Life's busy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So I got to meet you on set. We had Carlo on here, and we had Spencer Ortega on, and I met you that day. So it was just a great experience for myself, and I'm really appreciative that you've been in touch with me, and we've started to build some rapport after that. And you're awesome at what you do, and I just appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate you reaching out and having me on. I was like, oh, he wants me to have you on there? Cool. I saw like Spencer and Carlo come on here and some of the other guests you've had on recently. So it's definitely humbling in a way. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, cool. People are noticing some of the stuff I'm doing lately.
Absolutely. And it's funny, we were talking on set that day. I've been watching a lot of stuff you've done for a long time, and I think we were like Facebook friends for a long time, but never knew each other.
Yeah, I think I saw your Facebook friend request pop up like randomly one day. I accept most of them as long as it doesn't seem like a spam or weird thing. So I've been a little bit. Got to finally put your name to the face in person.
Absolutely.
On what was it? It was one of those days in the alleyway. I think we were shooting. Yeah.
Yep.
Guys, some crazy long nights.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, absolutely. But I guess we'll kick it off. Pretty much ask this question to everybody, but how did you get into filmmaking, and what was that early journey like, and where did the love kind of start?
I'll try to keep it brief. I guess it was like skateboarding, actually. So like me and my siblings growing up, we didn't have like a lot of money or anything. So like we would take like little videos of us like skateboarding with like when you first got a video camera on those little flip up phones, they like slid up. I used to do it that way, and then one of my grandmothers got me like a Sony Handycam.
Oh, you were rocking that.
Yeah, which is funny too, because like they still make the same start-stop noises actually even now, which I kind of love. You know what I mean? I turn the noise off obviously, but like it's kind of funny that like the same noise I heard when in my childhood and youth, I still hear when I start. So that kind of got me into video and stuff. I wanted to make like videos of my brother skating, me and my friends and stuff. But I guess like in the more serious terms of things, it was probably, I want to say like Star Wars actually, which is like maybe the lamest answer. But like, no, I mean, I love Star Wars. I love the creativity and the crazy universe they created.
Yeah. So were you would be like the age where episode 1, 2, and 3 were like fresh for you?
Yeah, I remember seeing those all in theaters and being so jacked. Like, I mean, I know people have their opinions on the prequels, but for me, they definitely like formed my love for cinema in a way, even though like they're not like the most story driven, maybe in some people's opinions. But in other ways, I think they actually are. So
the world building, man.
That's what's a good way to put it? Because I guess different people have different takes on it. But that definitely got me into the idea of like, oh, I think I would love to like film things. And then I moved to Milwaukee and like played in bands for a bit. And that kind of got me introduced to a lot of like musicians and different artists. And I kind of was like, oh, you know what? I want to try the music video thing. Because like growing up, I used to watch a lot of MTV. Like... I don't know, like a Paramore, The Only Exception. I don't know if you've ever seen that video.
I don't know. I don't remember that.
It's a fun music video. I think it's like Haley sitting on like a bed of flowers, top down. And I used to just like replay these all the time off the what is it? You could record the TV.
Yeah, like your DVR kind of thing.
Yeah, the DVR. You could like play back stuff. So I remember like playing that one back and different videos for like different metal and rock bands. A lot of like Schaetzke and Silverstein stuff. So eventually that like in Milwaukee, I was like, oh, I should give this a shot. And then I started doing like the music video thing, and it kind of just took a life of its own. Like I didn't really think anyone would really be that interested, and I just kind of kept doing it. And eventually, so it got kind of good, I guess, at some point. But I don't know.
I feel like so many filmmakers have that startup moment when like they're doing something else, and they're around their friends and like they need a video. Yeah, and they're like, most filmmakers are the people like, well, I'll just do it, and they become that type of, because they have that mindset like they're gonna get it done. and then all of a sudden you look up and now you've made a path out of it, a career out of it. For you, what with music videos, the emotion, like I got to sit down and do some research on some of your videos and watch them through, and it's just the amount of like the level of intensity in your videos. Like, where do you find that? And is that based on the story, or is it more so something that you bring, your flair you bring to the music? Or is that, more with the conversations with you and your artists you're working with?
I guess it definitely depends on like the song. That's something I like a lot about music videos, is I think they're kind of like experimental films in a way. You could do a lot of things that maybe doesn't make sense in a narrative context, but in a music video context, it makes sense. And you can get like a lot of chops in, because it's like, music video is like 3 minutes long, usually something in that ball, 3 to 5 minutes. So you can do a lot of different stuff quickly, I think, with them. So in terms of like where that inspiration comes from, it definitely is like a lot of the times I try to go off the first idea I think of, like listening to it, just like that dry listen. So like an artist will send me either a demo or a finished version of the song, and I'll play it and I'll try to just like listen to it in my room, like with my eyes closed, somewhere relatively secluded from like other stimulus, and like see where my brain goes with it. That doesn't always lead to like the final vision. Sometimes the artist approaches me with something. They're like, hey, we're thinking of doing something like this. So like one of my more recent videos, Bug Moment, that came out like I think it was like last weekend, or about last weekend. We were like, they're like, we have a lake house we could film on. Let's just do something there. And that was like the rough idea. I'm like, let's do a performance video. And then we started talking about it more, and Eli and the band and Jasmine were like, well, like, what if we like pulled a weird fish person out of the water? Yeah. And that, like, then it kind of took a life of its own on. And like, so for that video, that was just kind of like run and gun shooting.
Right.
It wasn't, that one didn't have like a storyboard, a script. It was like we were kind of figuring out together. And so those are sometimes some of my favorite. But then compare that to like a video I did for Still Stayer recently. That was a lot more concepted, and a lot more time went into that. So it definitely depends on the artist and the song. But I try to match the tone, I guess, because like I do a lot of metal videos. So like metal is like really fast and aggressive. So there's like I feel like you need a lot of cuts to match that pace.
Right.
Because like longer 30-second takes, or like even 15, I feel like the viewer might start to get a little bored with it. But that's my own take on it. Because there's definitely like long one-er videos and music videos that I love a lot. But it just depends, I guess, on the style of the music and where my headspace is at. Because I try to draw from my own life, I guess, in some ways for the videos.
Nice. So then, what's your favorite subgenre of rock? Like, where do you find like your sweet spot?
Right, I call it grungecore. Okay. So there's like bands like Thornhill, or I'm trying to think of another one in that vein. Spiritbox isn't quite like that. But I've noticed a lot of like artists kind of going in that realm. Metalcore, let's put it under the umbrella of like metalcore. I think a lot of artists would agree with that. But I don't want to say I have a favorite per se, because the cool thing is I think different genres kind of have different styles of videos that lend to them. Like I'd love to do more like rap music videos, for example, because like I think what you could create for that looks very different than what I'd create for a metal band. So like just recently, yesterday on Halloween, I dropped a video for a band called In Tongues, a video called Infernal Misery. And so that's like a very aggressive deathcore, just like breakdowns and screams the entire song. Mm-hmm. And that's like a very dark kind of horror themed music video. But that obviously maybe wouldn't match like if you were shooting like someone who just like sings and plays piano. It could, right. You know what I mean? I don't want to put it in a box, but it definitely depends on like what I'm feeling and what the artist is feeling.
Yeah.
So there's a mixture, there's a balance of the two. You want to make sure everyone walks away like happy with the art you created.
And I noticed you have a very strong color palettes within your videos.
I like my saturation.
Yeah. But I think it's awesome, and it stands out, and I think it's done tastefully. It's not like, overdone, or, it's not breaking down, killing the 10-bit or whatever. But where do you kind of go with choosing what palette works for what scene? Or I see sometimes you have like complementary colors throughout one video. Is that kind of your plan, or how does that work? I
feel like I try to light. It's funny because you had I think Ortega on here a little bit ago, and he was talking about like lighting spaces. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the DPs, Ortega is a DP I look up to a lot. So a lot of those DPs I follow mention that. So I try to like light a space or look in a room and I'm like, okay, what colors are in here kind of already, and work within that. And then if there's like nothing, because sometimes you just get put like in a black box and it's like, all right, let's make it look cool.
Good luck.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, there's different vibes you could go with that. I'd say complementary colors is definitely something I look for. Or sometimes like a color could push a mood or feeling, like, okay, every time we cut to the blue lighting or something, that's maybe pushing like this feeling of sadness and it's matching that tone in the song at this moment. But then on a more aggressive part, we're going to switch the lighting to like yellows, oranges and stuff, and that's matching that. Or, you know, you definitely like, you want to push your color contrast, I think, by matching those colors. So it just depends what you're doing, I guess, for the shot. But yeah, I'd say it definitely just depends on what the shot calls for. A lot of it, you know, sometimes I have it in my head going into it, and sometimes I walk in the space and it goes out the window and it's like, okay, this makes more sense for the shot.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And how much of that are you in post-production, you know, in color grading? Are you accentuating most of that, or is it sometimes you're kind of changing or messing around with those tones a little bit there?
In my early color grading stuff, like my first music videos I did, and maybe going back to like how I got into it was, I'd started doing music videos for like the bands I was in, and then I think other artists saw them and liked how they looked, and a few of them gave me some chances. And that led to more work, et cetera. And it's a lot of word of mouth. When I first started doing that, though, I was shooting on like a Nikon Z6, and that was like a very different for color and like color grading. So I used to zhuzh my colors a lot more then and like shift them with like the sliders in like DaVinci. That's like the program I color grade in. But now my color grade, I try to like monitor with my LUTs really well, and my color grading is pretty lazy, honestly. Like it's saturation, film grain, maybe glow if I think like the shot it needs it or something. Sometimes I pull saturation out a little and to like push the color. So it depends, you know, what the frame was. But I think if you light it well and you're monitoring it with a good and well-made LUT on a nice monitor, it makes my color grading process super simple. Like I'm not spending too much time on that anymore, which could be, you know, some people might have their opinions on, but I try to spend more time on like the edit and the cut. And then if the shot needs it, once I get into the edit, then I'll like selectively adjust a shot. But I do my best to get it like right in camera, so that way like when I'm editing, it's just a little easier.
That makes sense. It's always a push pull, and you don't want it to be noticed. And I think that's when the best grades do come, when you're not forcing it on somebody. You know, they just, you know, anytime editing is noticed, it's gone too far pretty much.
I would agree. Yeah. I mean, I definitely have some early videos where I'm like, okay.
I think we all have. We just slap the LUT on and turn it all the way up.
Yeah, like, or, you know, LUTs I downloaded off just the internet, you know, and I was like, oh, okay, this is definitely a little rough compared to my newer work. But I think like lately, I try to make the light look like it's motivated more lately, which is, I think, made my work look a little better. But yeah, it just depends, you know.
For sure. Something else I noticed about your DP work is your handheld is pretty next level.
Oh, thanks, man.
I think it's sick. Like just the way you move the camera and like your pans, and like it's very precise. How did you come up with that look? I think you do a lot of whip pans and like you'll just land it perfectly, you know. And
Thank you.
I noticed that with the fight scenes, and then just watching your music videos, it's like, damn, this. You had one with the fish head where you were like, someone was on the dock, and then they shot the arrow and hit him or whatever.
Yeah,
and you would swip right to the fish getting hit.
That was actually 3 shots cut together.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it was one take where they're in the water, and then we whip over. And he's drawing the air because, you know, we didn't want to point a bow at anybody. So just for reference, no one had a bow pointing at them with a live arrow. So yeah, it was we didn't have the bow off screen. It was just them with the fish person. Whip pan over. There's a hidden cut in there. Then we pull them out, and Eli pulls the bow up, shoots it. And there's another whip pan to the 3rd shot and then we just put the arrow in their mouth and had it kind of move and cut on that. But it is still like whipping and landing. For that, I have the luxury of more time. So that helps. I think a lot of people could do that just because, like, you know, you could do a couple takes. It definitely wasn't my first take. I think I got that.
But you're always thinking about the camera movement. And I think that's my point. So like, where did that kind of come from? And you know, you see some people, they have that slower, methodical look, but I feel like it's probably the music that lends itself to be more, high tempo.
I think it feels, I like the handheld feel. It always feels like family home video in a way, which I kind of like that. I think the music lends to it. I try to like do dolly or gimbal shots more intentionally now if I can. And maybe it's just like laziness to a degree. Like I don't love balancing a gimbal and like being like maybe limited in the movements I can get for my music video, and then pulling it off and like reattaching the nucleus and all that stuff. But for Spider-Gwen, like the way I feel like I got that was it's like a dance in a way. And I'd say for music, it's kind of similar too. Like you're trying to match the tone of the movement. So like you hear a beat or a drop, and in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm imagining the camera matching that. Like, I don't know, like a bass drop in a metal song, right? It might make sense to have the camera whip down and do a cut there with it where it lands on something, or the room flips. So I think for like the Spider-Gwen stuff, at least it was me working with the fighters a little, because I don't know if you're like on set, I would like ask them to do it and I try to practice the movements, and it felt like practicing the Konami code or something. I'm trying to like memorize their movements. If someone's hitting this way, I'm trying to match that movement. And if it's coming this way, I'm trying to match it. And I'm kind of in my head, I'm going like, oh, left, right, up, down. All of a sudden it's like putting a cheat code into a game, but with a camera movement. I don't know.
Right. You talked a little bit about, you play like a game where you get to kind of work on your craft a little bit. Can you tell us about that?
Carlo and Spencer turned me on to a video game called Contractors VR. So it's like for the Oculus Quest 2. And so I haven't gotten to play it too much lately with them, but the joke I guess we have is like, it's like if you ever played like Airsoft or shooter, it's just a shooter game in VR. So like we joke how like the tracking in that maybe kind of helps you with like tracking. I grew up playing shooters online and stuff like Fortnite, Call of Duty, yada yada. So maybe that helped in a way, but I think the VR, you're kind of holding something like this. So maybe that lends to it. It was kind of a joke and also kind of serious. Yeah. I don't know. I think more so it's just the repetition.
It'd be sick. We need to get a developer to create a game that is like a shooter, but it's a camera shooter.
I would
and
play
you're landing
that.
frames.
Yeah.
And it's just people sprinting everywhere. You got to keep them in focus and all that.
There's like high scores for who could track the best focus. Yeah.
That'd be sick.
That would be fun.
Hit us up. We'll make it happen. All right. If I'm a musician and I come to you for the very first time and we're sitting down and I give you my track, what's the next step from there? And we're going to concept like something from that. Can you just talk about the process? Like once you get done listening and you're kind of corresponding with your client.
Yeah. So sometimes it's like the whole, they don't have any opinions at all kind of, and they're like, we want you to do your own thing. So if it's that kind of route, what I do is I always try to do like a consultation meeting. So like we'll meet somewhere, we'll grab a drink, a coffee or something like that, or get lunch, and we'll sit down and I'll kind of start talking about like the rough idea to make sure they're like into it. Because I don't want to spend like, hours storyboarding something that then they're like, oh, well, we're thinking of going this direction. And, like for the budgets I'm working within, I don't have the luxury of like rewriting it 5 times or something, I feel. And I don't want to do that to myself, I guess, either. So we'll sit down and I'll be like, okay, here's what I'm feeling. Do you guys like this? And then usually, usually if they're into it, then I start to work on a storyboard with them. So I'll be like, okay, here's what we're thinking shot wise. Here's the locations, if we're going to do extras or props or like the story of it all. Sometimes they just want like a performance video too. So that's a little maybe, I don't want to say easier, but there's less like planning involved. If it's just a story, just a performance-based video. We're just going to be sitting down and not sitting down. We're going to be like in a room or on a good location, just like shooting them playing versus like, okay, we're going to do, there was a video that isn't out yet. Excuse me, man. It's for a band called House Pet. And the song's called Kelly Clarkson, and Carlo helped direct it with me. And it's like we're in an X-Ray arcade, and there's like a robot character we wrote about who's leaving his home, and he goes to the show and keeps having like awkward social interactions with everyone. So every time he does, he like presses a button and resets the day and comes back, and he does that until like this little jump device's battery is finished, and then someone helps him out. So that's like obviously very conceptualized. And so like when I approached them with that idea, and it's like, yeah, this is kind of weird, but like you're not going to be in the video much because the focus is going to be like on this robot character or something weird. So it definitely depends on just like what we're working on together, and how I approach it. And then sometimes they approach me and they're like, this is exactly what I want. Or they almost have like a script or storyboard for me. In which case, like I actually don't mind doing that, because I love when an artist has like a vision for their song too. And I want to be like a vessel to fulfill that. So my only like I guess stipulation at that is sometimes I'm like, oh, can I make like suggestions here and there? Like, I like this, but what if we kind of went about it this way with this kind of shot, or explaining why something might be like really expensive to do. Like I've had people who are like, yeah, let's have like a car explosion. And I'm like, I love that. That's sick. But okay, here's like the budget we have. Here's how much that would cost to do safely. Here's what it costs to rent a space to do that in, or like an outside space, yada, yada. So it definitely depends on what they're thinking.
Yeah, that's dope. That's dope. So you kind of mentioned a couple times some of your collaborators you work with, and I feel like you're in a network where you have a lot of different people that you can rely on or work with and kind of, help on any project, right? Can you just tell the audience like why it's so important to be able to lean on your network for filmmaking? Because a lot of people I think that they can only be a solo shooter or just like a run and gun person, and how important it is to kind of have that network.
Yeah, I actually, what's funny, like while I was showering before I came here, I was like, oh, I wonder if we'll talk about this, because I feel like my best work has definitely come from when I've had like friends and other crew members come out and help me and offer their opinions and help. So like recently I've started working with Carlo, and Carlo like definitely has a whole other vibe for how he approaches like writing storytelling that like I think really helps me. So like let's take that for example. Let's say you get a video and you work with someone else and have them help you like conceptualize and stuff like that. I think that will take it to a whole other place. And you have two minds both working towards the same goal, right? Which is we want to make something really cool that makes sense or has like a good story. So like there's that aspect. And then also just like day of shooting, moving all this stuff by yourself is really tough. I don't think I have just alone like the best ideas. I try to, like when I'm on set with other people, I try to be open to hearing like other people's opinions or of like changing things or trying to shot. So like for the Still Stayer video that came out with like the underwater shots we did recently, I had like Marquel Henderson like cam opt, and he got like this amazing angle of the drummer's Marcus playing, and I never would have shot it from this angle. And it's like we cut to it probably like the most in the video when it comes to the drum shots, and his cam ops and his movements and his hits to enunciate Marcus's hits were very different than what I would have done. So I feel like when you bring other people on board, it just elevates you in a way. But you want to make sure like you're giving those people, I think, proper credit and proper space to be creative. Because like you don't want, I think it sucks for anyone to come on set and then feel like they didn't get to like be a part of it and help with the creation process. Because like that's why I like to join sets with other people, is I feel like I'm a part of the process and I'm being helpful. So I'd say definitely like that's one big reason to it. And, you get to work with your friends, which is like sick. You know what I mean? I think most people in this industry appreciate working with their friends as well. And everyone I've met so far, like in Milwaukee, that does the filmmaking thing is super fun. So like, that's just like, I think I found like a nice home in the community here. And I definitely wish more shooters like considered like reaching out and shooting with more people and like collaborating on certain projects. I understand why it happens. Like I definitely do that myself too. But there's a time and place for it. So if you can bring other people on board, like why not?
Yeah, why not, man? It's a superpower when you actually get everybody in the room and you get people that are, amazing at certain aspects. Now you have like the Avengers. I think I said the
Avengers, yeah.
Avengers of filmmaking, and that really does help elevate any kind of situation.
Did you ever play Kingdom Hearts?
Back in the day, way back, like the original.
This is just for Carlo to laugh at if he watches later, but my friends are my superpower, right? It's like a joke, not a joke, but a saying the main character Sora says in it, and totally believe that. And I also think that it takes a village to do anything really cool, right? So I definitely feel fortunate to have the people who do work with me when they do, and I always try to return the favor too if I can. So it definitely is a blessing to have people who are like willing to just do this crazy thing with you whenever they want to. Because sometimes, the hours can be long and like you're shooting outside in the cold, or you're shooting in the woods and you're getting bit by mosquitoes or something. I don't know. So it just depends.
Yeah. Winter has arrived on us.
Yeah.
Snowed before Halloween this year.
I want to do a snow video.
Yeah. I'm sure you'll get a chance soon.
I hope. It's cold. You know, people are like, oh, I don't want my fingers to get cold playing guitar.
Yeah, right.
It looked cool, right?
It looked dope. Absolutely. So something else I noticed, and you do a great job of curating your content on your social media platforms, especially showing just the music videos, the framing, the colors. You just do great at that. What's your approach to creating content to kind of, help expose your work that you're doing?
I mean, at least for me recently, I can't believe I haven't done this before, but collaboration posts. I don't know how I didn't know that was like a thing, because like for you, you get a boost in the algorithm. That person gets a post on their page as well. I feel like it's a win-win for everyone, kind of. So like, lately I've been doing like the 3 cine still kind of crop things, and like a lot of my work lately has been shot in the 2:3:9 aspect ratio. So I think it's a nice way to showcase it. I think a lot of the other people like I look up to on Instagram do that. But I don't know if I'm the best at it per se. I try to post stories when I'm at work too. I think that helps. Like the engagement you get from that is super useful. Like showing people what you're doing. But I think like lately, I've just been like posting a lot of like the cine stills on my Instagram, and that seems to be like working for me. I can't say I'm like a social media guru, you know what I mean? It's funny you say that, I guess, because like I don't feel like I know what I'm doing too well with that.
You do a good job.
No, thank you. Yeah, I guess I don't overthink it. Maybe that's a way to put it. Get your work out there.
Get it out there.
Sometimes, I post stuff. I'm like, I don't know if this is my favorite thing, but like, it's at the end of the day, you have to show people something. And I think that's one of the hardest parts about being a creative is like you hold your work so close for so long, and then you eventually like release it to the world, and then it feels like it's like not your own anymore. Yeah. And then it's like open to criticism and all these things. But I don't think I've ever had anyone like say anything mean on my work or anything, but I can imagine that's a fear other people have, and I've definitely had that fear. So I would say just post your work and like own it, and like be proud of what you've done, and make sure to thank people you work with, I guess.
One of my big joys is like sitting either in bed or just looking at my phone and going through and seeing all the people that I know working and just doing stuff and making something awesome. And it's inspiring for me too, because it makes me say, oh, I gotta go get back to work. Like everyone's out there, and maybe it's a FOMO thing, but I just genuinely love seeing, people like you and other collaborators that we have just like getting after it. And it's really cool. And so keep it up, keep posting.
Thank you.
So something, go ahead.
No, sorry, I guess maybe elaborate. I just had a thought. This is my ADHD running around, but supporting other people's work, you know what I mean? Like, so I've always seen you like liking my stuff online, and that like is motivating, because I'm like, oh, Justin's a really good shooter and like operates this incredible video production company, and he's looking at my work. That's like crazy to me. And there's a lot of other people I have that same thought for. So I guess like if you're asking tips, or for someone watching looking for tips, is be engageful with other people's content. Like it doesn't hurt you to share someone's stuff, and I could definitely maybe be better at it, but if you're engaging and like messaging people or just like sharing their work here and there, it's not going to keep you from getting work of your own. And 2, I think it helps build your network of people who appreciate you, and other people see that too. You know what I mean? Like the people who are looking at your work, like, oh, the so-and-so is supporting so-and-so. That's cool, right? They're not like too in their own world.
Right. That's a great point right there. So I've got a question for you now, okay? When it comes to lenses, the sharper, the better, or the more character, more life?
I like more character, more life. I think it's such a hot topic, right? Because everyone goes back and forth. I like sharp lenses for like the right project. But lately my work is definitely like very shallow depth of field, which is like in another way is, could be considered lazy, because then like my set deck doesn't have to exist in a way, right? If you blow the background away, of course it's going to look nice, right? So I guess it's per the shot, definitely it matters. But like, I definitely love shooting like vintage lenses, like Canon FDs or like Leica Rs from like the I think like the 70s or 80s was like where that lens set came out from. I don't own those, like I've rented them. I love anamorphic. I wish I could own like some of those Orions, man, but like they're expensive.
Those things are nasty, bro.
The nanomorphs are what they used for some of the shots in Spider-Gwen, and I do like that brand Laowa a lot. They make a lot of like characterized lens, but a lot of like clinically sharp ones in ways too. So it definitely depends on the look, because there's like, you know, different films with different styles. Some of them shoot on like old Canon vintage K35s, and that's its own look. But then like going to like the Zeiss CP3s and 2s, that's its own look as well. So I think at the end of the day, it's just a look for the video. And I look more at like the lighting and the light shape. Like that's like why old films I think stand up today. Is like you could watch Alien, and you that movie holds up so well still, just because of like the way the light is motivated throughout scenes, how it's shaped on their faces, how they're hiding the alien throughout the entire movie.
Right.
They're just like showing a highlight of its body until like the very end. So I think that is maybe more important. But if we're gonna get like into specifics, because like obviously like lenses affect image.
Yeah, we can nerd out on those all day.
It's just, I think if you find something and you like it and it works for you, that's like probably the best. Like whatever you're probably most comfortable shooting with, and lends to your story. I think that's probably a story or vision, right? Because like a lot of my music videos don't have like crazy stories. So like the vision of how I'm imagining it looking, you know, then I think it fits, you know. But yeah.
So what's your favorite set of budget lenses that you maybe use that you're like, if you were recommending someone, because for the most part, none of us are going to ever be able to like own, you know, any Cook lenses ourselves.
Yeah,
we're going to rent those, right?
Yeah, no.
But they're starting to become like a set of lenses that, hey, this is feasible. You know, they cost about, you know, a set might cost as much as a body or a couple bodies. Like, this is feasible. We could get those. Like, what's your kind of go-to?
Like lately, a lot of my work's on the Laowa 45 millimeter 095. So I do like that lens a lot.
That one almost is kind of has that like triangle shape. Like the front of it is.
No. I'm trying to think. Laowa has a lot of like interesting glass, right?
Yeah.
And I think they're pretty innovative for like the price point. But it's just like a regular spherical lens. I think it's like $600 or something. It's not like, I mean, that's a lot of money, but in the context of like lenses, right, Cooks and everything else, it's affordable. It's obtainable for people, I'd hope. So, that's a lens I've been using a lot. I like nice wide angles with like limited distortion. So like definitely check like the Laowa series of lenses. A more like Cook approach, the SLR Magic APO lenses. I think Ortega likes those a lot too. They're soft. They have a little bit of cream to them, but they're not too soft. Where you're like, okay, what's the focus off?
Yeah, right.
Type of thing. Because there's definitely some vintage glass where it's like super hard to pull. And then other than that, you know, before I started using those and like the few anamorphic sets I've played with like the Nanomorphs or the Siru anamorphics. I was just shooting on the Sigma Arts. So like, you know, you could definitely take that and diffuse it with like a Tiffin Pro Mist, and then, you know, in your edit you could do a lot of zhuzhing to like push a certain look into it with like a glow or a halation effect or something. Rokinon actually makes pretty good glass. I mean, people have their opinions on them, but I like how they look. A lot of like pretty solid DPs use those on like red Komodos, and the work looks amazing, you know? So I think it's easy to get caught in it, but I think focal length and character is definitely like what you could look for. Yeah. I want to get a play around with like a projector lens mount at some point, where like you have like the weird front like fake anamorphic adapter. It's hard to focus, but you can kind of turn any lens for the most part, I believe, into like an anamorphic look. So there's definitely like a lot of options out there, but it's based per the project and like what you're shooting, because like, you know, a lot of the time for like my videography more based work, I'm shooting on like a Tamron 35-150. It has autofocus. It's a large throw, a variety of focal lengths at once. And I'm using the autofocus still. Yeah. You know, it depends on the shot, but it depends on what you're shooting, you know, because if you don't have time to get it again and it's a live event, you know, certain things
you can't be. Yeah, you gotta knock it out.
I do a lot of weddings still, you know, and so for that, I definitely still like that lens. Sometimes I throw it into manual, you know, when it's like, okay, autofocus can't do this right now. Right. So I guess like knowing your tool for the job is definitely a big thing, and I'm definitely blessed with like the autofocus on the Sony system. Yeah. You know,
I agree with you. Yeah, we're Sony shooters through and through, so I get that, and you can kind of lean on that sometimes.
Yeah.
I guess so. In another aspect of things of filmmaking, lighting. Have you developed any new tricks or tips with that, or any new gear that you've worked with that's helped to kind of step that game up for you?
Definitely like the pixel strips are a huge one. So That was something Spencer Ortega turned me on to. They're just like cheap, well, relatively cheap, like $50 a roll. Just LED strips that each little diode is like individually controllable. So it's essentially like a quasar. You know how like the quasars can do light effects across them, but it's flexible. It's like literally the size of a belt in terms of like thickness. And then it's controlled through an app with like a bunch of like different effects, and you could control them all very individually. There's probably a way to get DMX control through it. I don't have a DMX control set up myself, and that's like a whole other world of like light control and stuff. But I like those a lot. Like, so for this short film I helped my buddy work on called Fair Wake, we were shooting by campfire. And this is actually, it might sound kind of crazy, but the light from the campfire wasn't enough. And it wasn't like consistent. So we ended up just taking a pixel strip and like one of the ones I made and just making a circle with it on the ground, shooting up at them. And it's like a light effect where like some would turn off and on, orange and red. And like we forgot that the fire died at one point in the shoot because like we're like, oh, it's just that pixel strip going.
Nice.
So I'd say that helps a lot. In terms of like diffusing light, I think the biggest thing that's ever helped me with lighting was I had for one, working with Ortega. Like that guy is the GOAT when it comes to lighting. He's definitely taught me the most out of anyone and anything so far. In practical usage and stuff, and he's like just such a golden fountain of knowledge when it comes to that stuff. I think he's a very giving person. But I had a conversation with a DP named Steven Nis. He's based out of London, and he like directed Inside with like William Dafoe. He recently was like a DP on that show. If you haven't watched this, you probably might like it. It's called I'm a Virgo on Amazon Video. It's funny because that show I think didn't get the attention it deserved because there's like a lot of forced perspective with it. It's like a world where there's like a giant man. He's one of the last giants born. So there's like shots of like a normal person like you and I, but then he's in the foreground looking giant. Yeah. Or they have like a prop in the background that's like him that was built. But I had a conversation with him about lighting once, and he was telling me like motivating it through windows more is a big thing. So I try to look at a scene. I'm really trying to do that more because like I definitely like in the past would just have like a RGB panel here and there and just like, yeah, like red, blue. Oh, cool. But like, does that make sense within the scene? And then the position of it and the intensity and all that stuff is like subject to change. But I think motivation is like probably the thing I still struggle with, but I've gotten better at lately. And that, after that conversation with him and he showed me some of his work, he's like, yeah, this is all motivated pretty well. And he's like, if you brought that into your work, I think it would elevate it. And that was like right before this year. Like this is back in April. I think I had this conversation with him. It motivated me a lot to like attempt that with my shoots.
Motivated you to motivate the light.
Hey, yeah, that's exactly what happened. Yeah. So yeah, I'd say that's a big one. But yeah, I mean, I don't have anything like super fancy. Like the pixel strips might sound fancy, but anyone can make those and download. The app is free to control it. They're like $100 to make a strip. Okay. And they're super versatile. Those are helpful. And then just using like more diffused light lately, like with like 8x8s or a book light through like an ultra bounce or something. But I don't have like crazy powerful 600Ds. I use the small rig 220Ds. They're super cheap lights, made by Small Rig. We know them as like a very affordable brand. I don't know if they're known as a light company per se.
Yeah, they just started getting into that.
Yeah, you know what I mean? The color temperature might be a little weird for some people, but you can white balance in camera. Yeah. And you can gel it. And shooting on the Sonys, I do a lot of 12,800. Not always, but I do it a lot. I abuse it. Yeah. So you can get away.
It saved our butt on a shoot light recently.
But you don't need 600 watt, 1200 watt lights nearly as much, you know? Like I can't tell you how many times I've been on a shoot with a 600D and we're using that kind of camera, the FX6, FX3, A7S3, any of those that kind of reach that ISO sensitivity. And we're like, oh, it's on 1%. We got to go lower. You know what I mean? Because it's so sensitive. So you can get away with a lot less, I think, with that tool for one. And, you don't need to, I think, spend 50,000 even or even thousands of thousands on lights. You can get away with a couple $100 in your lights and just really know how to diffuse them and place them. I think that's like the biggest thing.
The craft is more important than the money.
Yeah. I mean, it is nice to have those tools. There's, if you're fighting the sun, this is a different story.
Yeah, right.
But I find like using a bounce card or something has helped me more, and then angling your talent to have the bounce hit them nice. That's done more for me than trying to lug a 600D down to a beachfront. You know what I mean? And then power that thing off a V mount for 30 seconds.
Yeah, you don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then what's something that you're looking forward to doing, the type of project you'd like to take on, or just kind of where you see the next, the future Xavier going?
A lot of the Unreal Engine stuff, we had a conversation about that together.
Maybe we should dive into that a little bit.
I would be down to talk about it. I'm definitely not like the best at it, but I've had a lot of conversations with other really talented people, like Ori McGinnis, he's out in LA, Tom J. Flynn. These are like two bigger dudes that have been doing like Unreal Engine work, and I've talked to them about like their process. I've seen their BTS, but I'm excited to try that stuff out more. I'm definitely not like the best at it by any means yet, but I think the option to shoot on a green screen, in theory, you could do it like in here, right? You know what I mean? You pull the couch away, set a green screen up. You obviously can't do the whole band at once, but you could do one at a time. Is amazing. For one, it lowers the budget. It lowers the time on set and like finding props or locations, but your edit time goes up more. But it's getting quicker. Like Unreal Engine is getting faster for like real-time rendering. We were talking like before we started, we're talking about like the different like AI tools for like rotoscoping and such. So I'm excited for that, and then I'm excited to maybe play around with like some more narrative work. Like I haven't done my own narrative piece yet, so I'd love to. I've been kind of waiting, I think, till like I feel like I knew what I was doing with lighting, and like I've worked on a couple sets now that are narrative based, where I've seen things where I'm like, okay, I like this. This is how I should approach working with talent. And I have like some friends who are actually good writers, like I don't know if I'm the strongest at writing dialogue by any means, but I think, when you have someone that's like their forte, it could just lend to your story so much more, So I'm interested in trying to do some like horror stuff or comedy things. Actually, I have like a comedy horror that I've been brainstorming for a little bit,
like scary movie, or
like scary, like found footage comedy horror kind of thing. It might sound kind of cheesy, which is funny because it's like the opposite in a way of cinematography. Because I'm genuinely thinking about having them like, if you're doing found footage, you're not necessarily trying to make it look the best.
Yeah.
But I want to cut between like the found and some cinematography, just for the sake of like, me feeling like there's some really beautiful shots in it still.
Yeah, right.
But I don't know if you've ever seen like Grave Encounters or something like that. Blair Witch Project.
Yes.
I love these movies.
That movie ruined my childhood.
Yeah, it sticks with you. When it's done well, you start to question things.
Yeah.
I think I remember hearing a story about how like someone's grandmother, after seeing the Blair Witch, was like, I hope they find those kids. Like she felt it was so real.
For real. Yeah.
Yeah. So like that kind of stuff sits with me, and it was just like Halloween. Halloween was yesterday, so like I definitely been watching some scarier stuff, and it lends to it. I like that. I don't know if I want to do as much of the gore thing as much. I definitely think there's like I like psychological horror.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's like ways to scare people in different ways. I think anticipation and build up is like definitely my favorite thing when it comes to those.
Yeah. That's interesting, man. That's interesting. I like that you're not afraid to experiment, try some things. I think the industry is moving so fast, and if you just pay attention, it's going in a direction where if you are just trying to learn what we're doing now, you're going to get left behind eventually. I think there's a lot of jobs that are going to be out there, a lot of opportunity, and being on the forefront of that, the Unreal Engine, the, whatever you want to call it, shooting and VFX world. Being there is going to be very important for a lot of us.
Yeah.
And being able to use all the AI tools and such. Are there any other things that you've seen that you're like, I want to test that out, or I can't wait till I can get my hands on it and try it out?
I remember like the HTC Mars came out a little bit ago, and it's like a real-time tracker for like Unreal for like doing like the camera movements and stuff. There's like, I think it's like Film Riot. I think it's their channel. They have like examples of like using that, but you could use like your cell phone for it instead, and it kind of gets you like halfway there, and then you can adjust like camera movements in post, kind of like like how shaky it is from the
right.
iPhone tracking or something. I'm excited to play one of those sometime though, because I love the idea of like getting handheld shake in a VR space. That's cool. You know, we're talking about how much I love handheld and like
Right.
I shake the camera so much. So like I would love to have that and for a music video on Unreal. I think I'm trying to think like, you know, like lately I have kind of chilled on looking at some of those tools, I guess, in a way, not because I don't think they're important. I just have been like fairly busy with like the editing stuff. I think it scares a lot of people because they're like, oh, it's going to replace real shooting and stuff. And I don't think it will. I think it'll always augment, and people will always appreciate watching like real things being done crazy. But if you're trying to create something different and like, you know, let's say you need to shoot in a hellscape, right, with like a lake of fire, just to go kind of crazy.
I like your mind goes there.
It's going to be hard to. I've been watching a lot of horror lately, I guess. Maybe that's why. Like The Conjuring and stuff. You'd want to, you know, that's going to be hard to build a set for practically.
Right.
So like that shot might make sense to do on Unreal and would look maybe even better depending how you do it. But then like compared to like the new Mission Impossible, right? Like the reason you want to watch that, or like Top Gun Maverick, is because you know these are like real shots. You're like, oh, that was a camera in a plane as they're whipping around. Oh, he jumped off a mountainside and that's a camera movement. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's real. You're immersed differently.
It's a different kind of immersion. That being said, there's still a way to do that with like, you know, the CG thing and Unreal. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely interested in seeing like as Blender and the AI thing progress, what you could do with like typing just a prompt in and Blender creating a model. And then also for like the animation stuff. I think that definitely scares a lot of people who do work in that field because it's becoming more and more accessible. Like there was a video I did recently where I had to comp like some fake books in, and I'm definitely like novice at all of this stuff. I don't want to pretend I'm a professional by any means, because there's definitely like professionals that might see this and like, okay, hold up. But I think the means to create a fake book and have like realistic looking motion blur on it or something, or to create a cathedral to put a band within that would cost you a lot of money to shoot in, those are becoming a lot more obtainable. So I think it just opens up the doors for like a lot of people to create, which is a good thing at the end of the day. You know, it's gonna amplify people's storytelling abilities versus like make it so people can't tell stories.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say that's what I'm excited to try.
Yeah, that's dope.
The Unreal stuff a little more.
That's dope. So where do you see yourself, you know, 10 years from now?
10 years from now. I hope I'd be like DPing like short films. I definitely like prefer that role. You know, I direct music videos, so I'd always want to do that. I look up to like Edgar Wright. Got started like in music videos and moved into like short film work, and then directed one of my favorite movies of all time, Scott Pilgrim Rules the World, or like the Daniels, who just like they swept the Oscars last year for Everything Everywhere All at Once. One of they have like early comedy skits on YouTube. Like one of them's called Pockets. Check it out. It's funny. It's like has very like Everything Everywhere All at Once vibes to the short. It's like a 10-minute short or something on YouTube, or 6. They also have another one called Interesting Ball, which is kind of funny because they make a bouncing ball very interesting. I won't say anything else because it's a journey. Yeah, it's like 10 minutes. It's not too long. And so they also got started in like that stuff and music videos. They directed Turn Down for What? I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I didn't know they did that.
Yeah, and if you watch that video,
they're falling through the floors every time. Yeah.
If you watch that video and then you watch Everything Over at Once, you'll kind of see influences of their directing style and camera movements and action within that video. I think actually, I can't remember the other details about it that I was thinking, but like they've done a couple music videos if I remember correctly. But like, they people moving from that space into that, I think is my goal. I don't ever want to stop doing music videos just because, like I said, they're experimental. They're weird. You know, Radiohead has a music video where it's just Tom York with a diver helmet on, and it fills up with water, and then it drains, and he holds his breath for like a minute and a half. So he technically could have drowned while making it, but that's kind of cool, right? Yeah. And it's like it's its own thing. Like that might not work as a short film, but for a music video, it works, right? So I definitely would never want to stop doing those, but I wouldn't mind trying to like DP or direct a more narrative-based thing at some point when I feel like I'm ready and my chops are up for it.
Yeah. Well, sure. I'll tell you right now, from my perspective, I'm a fan of yours. I love the stuff you're doing, and I'm looking forward to seeing these things that you're gonna put together.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, man. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for coming out and and chatting with us for a little bit and just talking about your journey. And you got anything else?
I'm trying to think if I got anything else for anyone else. Don't feel limited by the equipment. You know what I mean? I think that's the big thing. People get really caught up on what equipment are we using? What equipment are we using? And I'm like, you could shoot something fun on an iPhone, and if it had the right story and it had your heart in it, I think people would see and love that. And so I think maybe that's one. And appreciate your friends. Your friends are your superpower. I'm gonna drop more of that Kingdom Heart lore on everyone here. Shout out to Carlo Rosilio and shout out to Spencer Ortega. Thank you guys for always being in my corner and like awesome influences. And I'd say that's pretty much it. Thank you for having me on board. You've been like, I didn't know you knew so much about me. Actually, I was like, oh, you did your homework actually.
Had to dive in, man.
Yeah, and I just appreciate all the nice compliments because your work is also fantastic. So it's like hearing that from someone else who's in the same field and like the same space is always flattering, I guess. It's like, oh, I guess I am doing something.
Yeah, keep it up, man. Keep it up. Thank you so much. And no matter where you're watching this podcast or listening to it, please leave us a comment, subscribe, check us out because we've got a lot more amazing guests like Xavier coming. And we just want to keep this thing rolling. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Peace.